Welcome to the Trails of History podcast. Today's guest is Chris Mowery, a great friend of ours and the creator behind VloggingThroughHistory, a YouTube channel known for its deep dive reaction videos, videos of historic sites, and engaging explorations of some of the most important events in world history. He has built an incredible career as a historian, genealogist, speaker, pastor, and a content creator. He's a busy man. His channel has grown into one of the larger history YouTube channels online, earning hundreds of thousands of subscribers and over 150 million views. Through Vlogging Through History, Stories of the Great War, Stories of the Civil War, and VTH Gaming and VTH Extra, a lot of channels, Chris brings history to life through storytelling, site visits, and reactions rooted in accuracy, empathy, and genuine curiosity. His favorite subjects, from the American Civil War towards World War I and medieval England, shine through in every video he makes. We're excited to talk with Chris about his journey, his passion for connecting people to the past, and how Vlogging Through History continues to grow a global audience to care about our history. Now, let's roll the intro.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force.
We went over and we crawled. If you stood up, you were dead.
Schulden tragen den deutschen Staat, das Deutsche Reich.
What distance apart? This is Joseph apart 3.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
I did a mistake and I have edited that one out, so it's not in the podcast anymore.
You know me, Sanders. Have you ever seen me make a mistake?
In Oosterbeek, definitely.
Quite a few in Oosterbeek.
Yes.
I do often remember one mistake that included a certain glass bottle of a dark liquid.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
He has no recollection of that anymore.
Sander and I, we were walking around Oosterbeek, and he kept talking about how I never screw up and I always do everything in one take. And then we got to that one spot, and I must have gone through 20 takes before I could get it.
Yeah, John Baskerville's tree.
Yes,
on that
that's
corner
the
from the AT gunner. I'll never forget that. I was enjoying myself so much.
And then we're at the house for what's her name? The Angel of Arnhem.
Cat the horse.
Kate.
Yeah,
Kate
yeah.
the horse, yeah.
And Sander kept like making faces in the background and screwing me up.
I remember seeing the video where his head just creeps in the background.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had known each other like 2 days at that point.
Yeah, that was so fun. And that video is coming back up in my 100K video celebration as well.
Nice.
So that's going to be awesome. Still 500 subscribers to go.
Oh, yeah. Could be any time now.
Oh,
nice.
man. Pretty excited. But yeah, should we start? I think we already started, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Chris, everyone.
Yeah, hey, Chris. This is Chris. He has
going
like
on?
100 subscribers. Not that big, but...
Yeah, hopefully someday I'll have a channel like Sean does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm at 137 now.
At Trails of History, 137. But no, all the bullshit aside, Chris, welcome. Welcome to the Trails of History podcast. We're glad to have you on. So
I'm excited to be here. I'm always looking for opportunities to hang out with you guys, even if it's from the other side of the ocean.
no, that makes me feel good.
And I'd say he's drinking the typical Mountain Dew. That's like American breakfast, right?
It is zero, though. I mean,
okay.
Listen, to be fair, Mountain Dew has orange juice in it. So if you look at the ingredients, orange juice.
So that's vitamins.
I've been had some virus thing for the last few days, and growing up in the UK, like when I was a kid, the moment I was ill, my mother would go and buy me Lucozade straight away. So
listen, if we had Lucozade, I'd never drink Mountain Dew again.
What's up with the drink?
Whenever I get sick, it's just like Lucozade, because that's what my mum made me drink when I was a wee kid and I was poorly. It's just like a sports drink we have in the UK.
Doesn't it have it has like a big warning on it that says made with like glucose?
Yeah, made with glucose.
Yeah. In America, you would have a warning if it didn't have glucose in it. Like, don't bother. There's no glucose in this, so who cares?
Yeah, wasn't that one of the more culture shocks of you? That once you go here, like the orange juice, Fanta, like orange wasn't actually orange, was like
Well,
yellow.
yeah, because in Europe, you guys don't use all the junk that we put in our food here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can have the exact same stuff there, but it's a lot healthier for you than it is here in the States.
Yeah,
and then surprise, you don't see all the fat people in Europe that you see in America. So
like the Fanta over in the States looks like it's come out of a power plant or something.
it looks like that. It looks like
Yeah.
Lucozade, actually. But yeah, Fanta over there looks like orange juice.
It's the same with Big Macs, right? You have the ingredients of a Big Mac in Europe, and it's like this, and then you have the ingredients of a Big Mac in America, and it's like a whole
Even our
page
cereal,
full.
even up in Canada, like Fruit Loops have like 4 or 5 ingredients, and in the States they have like 3 times that many ingredients for the same exact product.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, I'm glad that I live in Europe, although we don't have gun freedom, and I want a bald eagle behind me and standing there with an M16 and be like, yeah, America. Yeah, Europe, yeah. So that's one of the weirdest intros that we ever had to the podcast. So that's always good. Chris, we always start, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't seen it. We always ask 3 questions to every guest. 1 in the beginning, and at the ending, we end with 2. Actually, a cheeky 3, but you'll see that at the end. So yeah, let's just start. Chris, we want to know, how did you get into history? Because that's the background of your whole channel, right? History. So we want to know, how did you get into it?
So I'm a little older than you guys, especially you, Sander. But I in 1985, when I was 8 years old, they found the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean, and that was when that news story broke. As an 8-year-old, at a time when I'm kind of developing what I'm interested in, and I was going through a lot of stuff in my personal life at the time with my family. I went down to the local library because we didn't have the internet, and I got every book that they had on the Titanic and just read every one of them cover to cover. And that was the first time that I found myself getting interested in a topic and then immediately just absorbing every bit of knowledge I could about it. And a couple years after that, Ken Burns, documentary guy who just this week, new documentary out about the American Revolution, came out with one about the American Civil War. And it was like this revolutionary thing in documentary filmmaking. The way he made his documentary was unlike anything anybody had done before. And I watched every episode and was obsessed with it and started getting every book I could about the American Civil War. And from that time, anytime something interesting about history has come across my radar, I've just dove into it and learned everything I could about it. And I've been obsessed with history ever since.
Oh, so that...
Go on. I was just going to say, it's amazing what the Titanic does, right? Because even people that don't necessarily really enjoy history, there's such I guess the movie kind of romanticized it quite a lot, but everyone knows the Titanic. And I think at every point, someone always hears a story about the Titanic and at least will Google it and look at some of the history of the people, some of the, they've had the few people that have driven the drones down there and filmed it. It's just amazing the draw the Titanic has for people.
But at that moment, I mean, before 1985, nobody knew where the Titanic was down there. Nobody knew for sure whether, like now we know it broke in half when it sank and it's in 2 pieces at the bottom. At that time, there was arguments about whether that even happened. Did it really break apart? Did it stay together? So all of this stuff we know about the Titanic today, we didn't know in 1985 when they found it. And so it was a really, really big deal at the time. And, it had been 73 years since the Titanic sank at that point. And so, a lot of the modern world's interest in the Titanic goes back to that moment in 1985 when they found it. And then, of course, the movie came out in 97. And at the time, it was the biggest movie in history.
How
big
accurate?
deal
How accurate is that movie?
I mean, obviously they have a fictional story with Jack and Rose. Those weren't real people. I mean, there was a real Jack Dawson, but he wasn't that guy. But I mean, like a lot of historical movies, the big important stuff they get right. A lot of the lesser important stuff they kind of fictionalize for the sake of a story. But by and large, it gets a lot of the big stuff right, I think.
I think it's James. Was it James Cameron who did that film?
Yep.
Yeah, because I know he's a big advocate for he's been to the Titanic himself, right? In one of those.
A bunch of times, yeah.
So I remember reading, the way he had the Titanic splitting and going under was as close to what they predict happened
at the time. And
yeah.
even he now says that since then they've learned more and
Yeah,
they've slightly
exactly.
altered, like it actually went down at a bit of an angle and a piece of it at the bottom stayed
I
together.
fell into a bit of a gap of reading into it again, mainly because of the Ocean Gate disaster, right? That hit the headlines and a sad story, but it kind of re-prompted a bit of the interest for the Titanic again. You know, what's the big
And that's
draw
what it
for
does. Like those things come on the news and they cause people, like right now, a lot of people are looking at U.S. President James Garfield because of the Netflix series that just came out about him. And so suddenly everybody's interested in him when nobody knew anything about him before. So
same with all the movies, Saving Private Ryan, The Longest Day back then. Then all of a sudden, Band of Brothers. Like everybody just with outside sources, all of a sudden get really deep into history. And once you go into the rabbit hole of history and you actually enjoy it, you never come out.
Right. So Titanic was that for me, and the Civil War series from Ken Burns. And so like your generation, you've got Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers and Masters of the Air and the Pacific and all these things that kind of get a new generation of people interested maybe. And, you know, so say what you want about Hollywood and how sometimes they butcher the history and don't get things right, but they do get people interested in things. And if it causes you to look more into the real history, then I'm all for it.
100% true. Although I have to admit, there are two movies that I am like worst movies to get into history, which are recent. One, Gladiator
Fury?
2.
Oh,
Fury as well. Three movies. Fury, Gladiator 2, and the Napoleon one that was recently.
Oh, Napoleon.
Oh, that was so bad, man.
I really like Fury, and I know it's horrendously inaccurate, but
it's entertaining as a movie.
On face value, like the actors and stuff that are in it, like it's a great movie.
That's the difference between Fury and Napoleon. Napoleon was not only bad history; it just wasn't a very good movie either. I mean, it had some cool battle scenes.
I couldn't survive Napoleon. I got about halfway and was done. I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah, not for me.
No.
Napoleon, there was so much here. They made him such a simp.
Yeah.
The greatest general ever to live, and they portray him only as a simp.
Super charismatic guy that just came across as boring and tired and old and
it's we can do a whole podcast on that movie, which we maybe should in the movie.
I'm gonna be sick again when you do that one.
Yeah. So you got into history, and then all of a sudden, COVID, if I remember correctly, COVID hit.
Well, COVID is when I started the channel. So I actually majored in history in college. I was going to be a history professor. That was what I wanted to do with my life. And my life kind of went a different way. I ended up going into ministry and working with teenagers in church. But I started, and I know we're going to talk about this later with Rachel's Challenge, but I was speaking for Rachel's Challenge. And so I'd be traveling for a couple of months every year, but then I'd be home most of the year. And so I needed something to do. And so I initially started a gaming channel. It was called The History Guy back in 2016. And what I would do is I would play historical strategy games, and then I would talk about the real history. So if I was playing a game about the Battle of Gettysburg, I would talk about, well, here's what actually happened, and I'd give people a history lesson while I did that. And so I did that for a while. And after like 4 years of the gaming channel, I had like 4,000 subscribers, you know, making a couple $100 a month. It was just a little extra money. And but I would occasionally, when I was traveling, just use my phone and make a little vlog at a historic site, and I'd upload that to the gaming channel. But those of us with YouTube videos or YouTube channels now know that you can't do that. The YouTube algorithm doesn't like it when you do two completely different things on the same channel. So I started vlogging through history as a way to post the vlogs that I would make from the historic sites. Well, right about the time I started vlogging through history was when COVID hit. And so I wasn't traveling. I wasn't speaking in schools like I had been. And so the channel just kind of sat there for a while with no videos on it. And one day somebody said, well, why don't you, there's this Swedish metal band Sabaton, and they do all these songs about history. You should watch one of their songs and just talk about the history behind the story that they're telling in their song. And I'm like, well, that's a stupid idea, but I'll try it. And it worked. And I started doing reaction videos. And within a week of my first 2 reaction videos, I got 1,000 new subscribers in a day. It took me a year to get 1,000 subscribers on my other channel. Within 3 months, I had 100,000 subscribers. Within 6 months, I had 200,000 subscribers. And while the channel was never made for reaction videos, it has become that, and now I'm over 500,000, and I still do the vlogs from historic sites, but that isn't what gets the views.
It's crazy how fast that went, right?
It
like
is.
Your growth, immediately you were on the map.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's slowed down a lot since then, but that first year
normal,
was
right?
absolutely insane. I went from no subscribers and no views to within 3 months doing it enough that I could make it full time and not have to do anything else.
Do you remember like the initial time where you checked your phone and was just like, holy shit, what's happened?
Oh yeah, I remember it because I remember the first trip that I took to make historic vlogs for the channel after the channel had blown up. I drove to Fredericksburg, Virginia to do stuff on the Fredericksburg battlefield. And that was about 2 months after my first reaction video. And it was during that trip that I remember checking my phone, and I got something like 60,000 views in a day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually becoming something. And that was the moment when I realized my life was changed forever. I was on that trip when I realized, oh my gosh, this thing has taken off to the point where I could actually do this and nothing else and make a full-time living, pay all my bills, and start traveling full-time if I wanted to. And it was one of those moments when you realize your life has forever changed in a way that you never expected it would.
It's crazy, right? But so people watch your videos, and it's like a reaction video. So you react to other content, but what you do is sort of special as well, because if the video is like 10 minutes, your reaction video will be like 20 minutes. You respond and explain a lot and go pretty in depth on your videos, and I think it resonates a lot with people. And your character, your personality comes really out, and I think people like that. People are attached not to the reaction video, but to you as a personality, your personality that reacts to those videos and want to know your opinion.
A couple of things about that. One is somebody pointed out to me, and I think it's a pretty accurate assessment, is that they said basically like a teacher has a textbook and they use their textbook. There's a really loud vehicle going past my house. They use their textbook as a starting point to say, okay, we're going to turn to this page and here's what the textbook says. And then they go from that and they teach on that subject. Basically, the original content that I'm reacting to is my textbook.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point. And that gives me ideas. And it's like, okay, here's what they said. But what they couldn't say in a 10-minute video, I can go a little deeper and tell you more about what happened here and that sort of thing. And yeah, I think personality is a big part of it. And I've embraced that more. Initially, the first year or so, I tried to just stick to the history, but I've discovered over time that people do want me to talk about more than that. And they do like hearing about my family and hearing about my views on life. And I've actually started making videos where I'm like, you know what, let's talk a little bit about this. You know, when Charlie Kirk was shot, for example, I didn't really know much about Charlie Kirk. He's more your generation than mine. And, but it was an opportunity for me to say, you know what, here's other times in history where our inability to find common ground and to compromise has led to violence. And it could happen again if we're not careful. And just kind of talk about life and how we as human beings react to the history that's happening around us. And yeah, and I've made a lot of friends. I mean, you guys are two of them. Without my YouTube channel, I don't know Sander. I don't know Sean. You know, here I've got a friend in the Netherlands and a friend in the UK that I never would have met. And probably the people I talk to more, you know, we've got our Backstreet Boys group that we're a part of. And, you know, we do group trips together and all of these life-changing things that have happened in my life because of a YouTube channel. So I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah.
The first thing that happened was you went to Camp Toccoa together with JD.
Yeah.
And
so
cleaned it up.
Yeah, so JD, I had been a fan of his channel, and it was right about the time that I started doing videos that I learned about his channel, because his channel, he was doing what I wanted to do with mine, which was to go around and make videos at historic sites. And when I saw he was doing this cleanup project at Toccoa, I'm like, well, I'm going to sign up and be a part of that. And so that was where JD and I met, was in Georgia. And the week that we met was right around, like, within a few days of when both of us went over 100,000.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I remember that.
And I passed him in subscribers that week that we met. And until his Munich series where his channel just went nuts and he went from like 300,000 to 600,000 overnight. I was ahead of him in subs, and now he's way ahead of me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, we met through that. And then it was about a year after that, then that you and I met in the Netherlands when we did that first We Happy Few tour together. And we met Marcel there too.
Yeah. And later with We Happy Few, we met Rob. And that's how the whole group came together. Like,
I met Rob before that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we were talking about that.
I met him in Ypres in Belgium. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Bastogne was my first tour with We Happy Few, right? And that's when I obviously I knew Sander prior, but that's when I met everyone else. And yeah, it's like you touch on it, like with history as a whole and all these various channels. The one thing, I mean, I don't have a huge YouTube, so I can't really input from that aspect. But having the group of friends for me is fantastic, you know. And I have no doubt I could ring any one of you at any point and be like, I need help, and any one of you be there in a heartbeat.
Great example of that. When I went through a divorce a couple years ago, and I had largely kept quiet about that. I had told you guys a little bit about it here and there, but when I sent in our group chat that our divorce had been finalized, like instantly, like my phone rang 2 minutes later, and it was JD calling to check on me, ask if I was okay. The rest of you guys were all like, hey, we're here if you need anything, even if you just want to, play a game or do something that's completely unrelated just to get your mind off it. We're here. And like, you can't trade that for anything, having friends like that you can go through. Even from the magic of technology now is that, if Sander will just call me up on a video call one day just out of the blue, and here we are 3,000 miles apart from each other, and I'm walking around my kitchen talking to him, and it's cool. Just amazing what the world today has become.
And it's so cool as well as how it all came together and how it's sort of flowing all together. I think it's a really special group that what we have. And like if somebody wants to know something about history, like if we need some research done or some family, we go to you, Chris. Before I even fully typed in the serial number of the service number of a soldier, he already responded with the whole list of everything that soldier did, where he was born. It's absolutely crazy.
All of us have our strengths and have our like areas that we can help everyone else. And, like you're doing a lot of the animation work for JD, and you obviously know a ton about, Operation Market Garden, and you got to help JD with that when he was just there. And, so we all can kind of build one another up and encourage each other. And when one of us has a video that does really well, we're all celebrating and excited for one another. And Sean makes amazing bacon sandwiches.
He does.
It's my calling, my true calling.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I don't want to reduce you to that, Sean. You're a great guy that brings a lot to our group, and I'm glad you're a part of it too. And have you guys talked at all about what our plans are for next year?
No, nobody knows yet.
Not actually done it on a podcast yet.
Oh, yeah.
We can.
Big plans. Big plans.
Yeah.
Don't say the dates, though.
No, we don't have to say the dates, but we're going to Poland.
So yeah, pretty much yearly try doing an annual trip. Sadly, I missed the last one.
Yeah, it wasn't the same without you.
Well, I had some family stuff going on, but yeah, the next one, 2026, it's like a whole week in Poland, right? Like a full lap of Poland, doing loads of sites. So I can't wait for that.
I've been wanting to go to Poland for a long time, and this is honestly, to me, the best way to do it with all of us as a group. We're going to be hitting all the really big, important places that you can go to. We're going to be all over the country.
Me and Sandra are planning to vlog that similar to the last one I was on. So it will be like an unfiltered, unedited day-to-day vlog. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fun. I loved watching those.
Yeah. So we'll do that again, because I think everyone's going to have their own content and videos going out, but to have a vlog behind the scenes and just when we're in the car chatting away, the laughs, the jokes, the failures, the slip ups, it's all part of it, right? So yeah,
and even if nobody else wants to watch it, I just for us, it's fun to have that.
It's cool to look back on. Like sometimes I just look back on and some bits, and you can see the fun that we have. And then you go for like a week, and then before you know it, within a blink of an eye, you're back home. Like so fast.
Watching the video of us connecting, I think we were at a Lidl when we all connected in the parking lot, and I pulled out my shirt
Yeah.
Sanders face on.
Sanders shirt.
With all
I should have wore that today. I don't know why I didn't.
I'm glad you didn't.
Someone fired. Sandy, you need to put a photo of the Sanders shirt in this podcast now. You need to edit one in because that was one of the greatest shirts I've ever seen.
No.
Chris, send me the photo.
So yeah, but so we're going completely off track here, which is good, which is completely fine. I love that way more. But I'm gonna skip just one question. So we talked a bit about the research that you did, right? The what I said about you just have to find a service number and you already within a few seconds you have everything. What is the most meaningful discovery you've made while doing like family research?
Oh,
that could be yourself or for someone else.
Yeah.
Most meaningful.
Well, there's a couple. So my daughter's boyfriend is Orthodox Jew, and his family all came after World War II, came to America and settled in Ohio. And I was doing research on his family, and most of his family, like a lot of Jewish families, most of them died in the Holocaust. They were Polish. But I found out his great-grandmother, who survived the Holocaust, was held at Bergen-Belsen, and she was there at the same time that Anne Frank was at Bergen-Belsen. So there's a decent chance she knew Anne Frank and her sister and her mother, who were all there together. And he said that was like, he knew his family's connection to the Holocaust, but to have that connection to someone like Anne Frank and to know his great-grandma was there with her in the same camp at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was pretty neat. For me, I've had so many, but one that's kind of a little different that was kind of fascinating. I've known for a number of years that I had a great grandfather who was hanged during the American Revolution. It was actually, if you've ever seen the movie The Patriot, obviously The Patriot is like really overblown in how it shows it. They show like the scene where Tavington puts everybody into a church and lights it on fire and kills them all. Nothing like that ever happened, but there was a lot of like people executing people from the other side because they fought for the wrong side. The American Revolution was like a civil war. And so my ancestor was captured and hanged because he fought for the crown. He was a loyalist. He fought for the British. What I found out, he was one of my mom's ancestors. I found out a couple of years ago that one of my dad's ancestors was the guy who captured and hanged him. So one of my mom's ancestors was hanged by one of my dad's ancestors during the American Revolution.
How do you even find that out?
How does that?
How do you find that out?
Crazy.
Well, I mean, first of all, you just, you trace the family tree and you find out who these people were, and then you start digging into their stories. And they were both prominent. They were both captains fighting on opposite sides, and they both happened to be from the same town in North Carolina, but fought on opposite sides in the war, and their paths just crossed in that way. Crazy.
Wow.
Imagine if things went different. Like if he didn't hang him and someone else changed, like how would that have affected the whole family tree thereafter,
Well, and it's crazy because this happened in North Carolina, and then both families ended up in the same town in Kentucky. But my parents met when they went to high school together in Ohio, like 5-hour drive away from where their families came from in Kentucky. And, just for those paths to keep crossing in different parts of the country. It's crazy.
Once you search that and you see that and you read that, there must be disbelief, like this can't be true.
Initially, yeah, but the more you research that stuff, the more you find that everybody has stories like that. I mean, it's I just happen to know mine because I've been researching them for the last 35 years. But everybody has stories like that in their family history somewhere, something that is just like, oh,
I do love it in our group chat though, when you find another relative somewhere like buried in a small village in England it's incredible how you figure it out.
Yeah. And every time he starts talking about that or talks about Ohio, I grab a beer and I take one sip. It's the VTH drinking game, right? What
That's great. We got a whole video on the drinking game.
Yeah. Oh man. So now maybe some deeper questions. Sean, are we ready for some deeper questions?
Yeah, go deeper.
Go deeper. Okay. So maybe this one is perfect for you. I feel this question is perfect for you. Are there any historical figures and you can only choose one you feel are widely misunderstood?
I'll go with somebody we've already talked about, Napoleon.
Okay.
I think a lot of people equate Napoleon with Hitler. All they see is here's a guy who conquered Europe and millions of people died during the Napoleonic Wars. He was evil. He was just like Hitler. And that could not be further from the truth. I honestly, first of all, most of the Napoleonic Wars were started by other countries, not by France. It was France defending themselves. It's only later on, after Napoleon becomes emperor, that he starts going on offensive wars. And those end up pretty badly for him. Like, Russia is obviously the classic example. That was a war that he started. And he had justifications in his mind for that. But for most of the Napoleonic Wars, it's the British. Sorry, Sean. And I'm listen.
I'm
nobody
used to
loves
it on this podcast now, getting abused by Americans.
Nobody listen. As an American, I'm much more pro-British than most Americans. Right? I'm the guy who shares on the 4th of July. I share the picture of Queen Elizabeth that says,
true, yeah.
Happy Treason Day, you ungrateful colonials. If I were alive during the American Revolution, I probably would have been a loyalist. But and I'm a constitutional monarchist to this day. But but the British were the ones who kept a lot of that going. They kept funding those wars. They did not want they could not stand the thought of a republic in France that had overthrown their monarchy, because it meant it was a potential threat to George III and to the other monarchies of Europe, and Austria, the same thing. And so Napoleon is a lot of what Napoleon did. His Napoleonic Code was good stuff that is still used today. He revolutionized Europe in a lot of positive ways. He wasn't perfect at all, but he was nowhere near a Hitler. And I think he's vastly misunderstood in that way.
I literally have to thank Napoleon for my last name, because Van Kammen was back then was a job of, I don't know how to say that in English, but it was sort of a field work in the fields for farmers. And my last name, all of a sudden you had to think of last names, right? During the Napoleonic times. And people were like, okay, I'm a baker. So I have a bakery. So my name will be Baker. And then, so literally my last name has to do with the job on the fields that people did back then, which is now during the Napoleonic time, which is now my last name and my whole family tree. Like that.
I'm curious to know how Marcel got his last name.
The cock.
Yeah, the cock, the rooster.
The rooster, yeah. Maybe like a rooster farmer or something.
Marcel the cock.
Yeah, it fits perfectly, though.
I guess he could have been like, do they had people that just raise chickens, I guess? I don't know. It's got to be something.
Either that or maybe it was some kind of nickname for one of his ancestors who, for whatever reason, had like some aspect of his personality that made him, like maybe he was fathering a lot of children or something.
I know back in those times, like there was no hidden meaning or behind the name. It was just blunt. Like my surname's Wells. And I think that derives from Wellman, like someone who would look after the village well or maintain wells. So that's where mine, from what I understand, I might get fact checked for that. But when I did a bit of research, that's where it kind of came from.
So in the States, it gets really confusing for us because a lot of times people came from Germany, from Italy, from other places. And over time, their names got anglicized. They got changed. So if your name was Bianco in Italian, maybe you changed it to White. It didn't always happen, but sometimes it did. If you were Schwartz in German, you might have changed your name to Black to sound more American. So my last name, Mowery, is an English last name, but my ancestors were Maurer, M-A-U-R-E-R. It was German. And Maurer in German is a bricklayer. And what's cool about that is my great-grandfather in the Mowery family came from Kentucky to Ohio to work at Niles Fire Brick, where they made bricks.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Another one that crosses the path like that. In history.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really crazy how that worked out.
So did the last name from the Napoleon era spread from Europe towards the whole world?
Well, I mean, a lot of countries had last names by that point. I mean, the UK
it was mandatory during
UK had surnames going back to like William the Conqueror. So they had them for a long time by that point. But Napoleonic Code instituted certain rules in a lot of these places. Like the Netherlands, had been under so many, they had been Habsburg, they had been Spanish, they had been under different So they really only become a country of their own in the aftermath of the Napoleonic era. So
Yeah, well, yes, sort of. We became really independent eventually after the Napoleonic era, and then we had like the golden ages. That's why we were so rich, and I'm very proud of that. Although it has black pages, right? But every part in history has that. The Netherlands, before they existed. If you go all the way back to the Romans, we were the Frisians back then, the barbarians, the Frisians, and they were up north in the northern part of the Netherlands. So. And I am sort of I'm half Frisian. So my DNA sort of goes back all the way back to those people who held the Romans not cross the Rhine. It's pretty cool to see like how far, because America, sometimes when I'm in with Americans in the Netherlands and you see that church over there? And I say, yeah. I said, that church is older than America.
Yep.
They always look at me where, oh, you fucking asshole. But it's pretty funny. So America is now 270.
250. Next year will be 250.
250.
Yep.
That's crazy. So
1776. So 2026 is going to be a big year for us because it's our 250th birthday as a country, but it's also we're hosting the World Cup and a lot of stuff going on. So
I need to go out there on the 4th of July next year then.
Why?
Just so I can wear my St. George's cross like a cape and just walk around.
Nice.
See how I get on.
Well, it's funny because we have a song that people sing, especially around the holiday, like the 4th of July holiday. That's my country, 'tis of thee. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. Sound familiar, Sean? Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside. God save the king. We took God Save the King and wrote our own words to it. So whenever it gets sung in America, I always sing God Save the King instead.
Oh, you traitor. You're actually, you have European, so much European blood in you.
I'm 100%. I mean, with the exception of a little bit of African and a little bit of Native American, I'm almost completely European.
Wait, you're part African?
Oh yeah, I'm 1/16 African.
Really? Do you know which part? North, south?
Oh, it was south. My great grandmother was born a slave.
Really?
Yep, in Kentucky.
Wow.
Her name was Cheney Caudle, and she was a slave. Yep.
I think you've spoken. I remember the name Coddle. No, you said. I think you.
Caudle's a Scottish name, but because she has her owner's last name, like a lot of slaves did. They took their owner's last name as theirs when they became free.
Yeah, didn't you say something about that in Verdun when we were in Verdun?
Oh yeah, I've known it for a long time.
Yeah.
Man, that's
my great grandmother was listed as mulatto on the census, which means mixed race.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons why they came north into Ohio is because in Kentucky there was so much prejudice toward them.
That's why they went all north. Yeah. Dude, history is so fascinating, man. I'm so glad that I'm into this this space. You want to say something, Sean?
No. Carry on.
Or I hear you say, now something completely different, right? So you started getting to history. All of a sudden, you got this YouTube channel, and like you said, all of a sudden, you got the freedom to travel. First time you went to Europe wasn't that long ago.
No.
First time ever in your whole life. You've always been on that continent, on that side of the globe, and then all of a sudden now you have the ability to go to the battlefields that you've always read about during your whole childhood, and finally you could visit it.
Yeah.
I know it already, but maybe for the viewers, what was it like for the first time to be on the Somme? Because I think the Somme is the most, how have I written it down? I wouldn't say your favorite place, or could I say the favorite place?
It might be. I mean, favorite implies that it's fun, to be at this place where all these people died, but it's probably the place that I feel like that I'm drawn to the most when I'm there. And the funny thing was that first time I went, I almost didn't go. Because I had planned out my whole trip. My first time to Europe, I went to France. And that was 4 years ago. Yeah. 4 years.
4 years?
It was 3.5 years ago because it was 2022.
Do we know each other so long already?
It was February 2022 was the first time I went to to Europe, and
Yeah.
I went to France, and my plan was to go to Belleau Wood right after I left the airport because it's real close to Paris. And went to Belleau Wood, and then I went to Verdun, spent a couple of days in Verdun. And from Verdun, I originally planned to go to Luxembourg and visit George Patton's grave, and then go to Bastogne and all of that. And I did end up going to Bastogne briefly, but I didn't make it to Luxembourg. And then I just kind of on a whim decided to go to the Somme. And it was about a 3-hour drive from Verdun, and went up there. And my very first stop was at the Sheffield Memorial Park, where the Accrington Palace attacked.
What a beautiful place to open up the Somme for you.
And I will probably say this till the day I die. My favorite video I've ever made was my video about the Accrington Palace that day. And keen observers who might watch my video about the Accrington Palace will be able to figure out that I actually shot that video 2 different days, because I went and made the video that night, went back and watched it all, and there were a couple of things I had to redo, and I went back and reshot it. And you'll notice that in the original parts of the video, I have a little bit of stubble on my face, and then there's some shots where I'm completely clean shaven, and it's because I went back the next day and reshot some stuff. But yeah, I mean, immediately connected with that video, the Accrington Palace. And I've never been to a place like the Somme. And from that moment, I've had, for whatever reason, this really just special emotional connection to the British Army in World War I. And that's why I've made so many videos. And I went back to Ypres later that year, and they were just something that I can't really explain. And I think we've all felt that at the Somme, that I can't really explain about that place.
Yeah. I don't think you'll ever figure it out on the Somme. Like I say, my first time visiting, obviously being British as well, the natural draw. I'd done Verdun before the Somme with you guys, but ever since, I don't know what it is. It's just like a beacon that I need to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Like even now, I'm thinking, when can I next get to the Somme? And there's no real explanation for that, because I've seen, don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of places I haven't been on the Somme, but just the draw to go back and just, it's calming. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It kind of helps me reset for myself in a really bizarre way, because it's a horrible place in the sense of what happened there, but also stunning at the same time, especially if you get the nice weather right and the poppies are in bloom. Yeah.
And we have those places that we didn't like set out thinking would be a big deal that have become very special to us, like going to Redan Ridge. And it seems like every time we go back there, every time we go back to the Devonshire Cemetery, there's certain places that have kind of become shrines for us, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, it's weird that cemetery. Like even with my birthday when we were there, I was just sitting there alone at that cemetery, and also you guys came, and we were just chilling there for like 2.5 hours, just talking, being with those guys in the graves, do some relic hunting. We were just hanging around there, and we weren't bored. We were talking about life, like what happened when you were younger, what you want in life, and that's, I don't know. It sort of brings out something that I cannot explain with words. And I think the Somme will be the last place on Earth I will ever get bored of. It's the last place on Earth that would bore me. That makes sense.
And it's funny too, because Verdun to me, like on paper, if you're talking about a place that should have that impact on people, I think it would be Verdun, because Verdun still, I mean, there's really honestly a lot more to see in Verdun as far as remnants of the war. A lot of the Somme, it's the memorials, it's the cemeteries, but most of the battlefield is gone as far as looking like it did, with trenches and barbed wire and all that stuff. Verdun, you can see that all over the place. You can see the bunkers and the forts and the trenches and the shell holes everywhere, because it's so remote and it was so devastated that it was never rebuilt. So Verdun, there's a stronger sense of sadness when I go there, and like kind of an oppressive kind of depression when you feel that you feel there.
Said. Yeah.
The Somme, it's more mixed. It's still sad because of what happened there, but there's just a different kind of, maybe to me as an English speaker, and because I had relatives who were in the British Army, I guess there's more of like a sense of honor and Not that there isn't honor in what the French did at Verdun, but I don't know. It's just hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's a deeper connection, I think, especially if you've got like blood ties somewhere, you know. And it's, you know, my great grandfather fought over there, but it's, you know, when I go down to the shop in my local town and that war memorial, you know, the names on there, we found some of them in the Devonshire cemetery, right? So, and one of those guys grew up like 2 streets over from where I lived as a kid, you know, so born at different times and it could have been different circumstances. So that connection for me is always there. And like you say, Chris, you might be from the States, but a lot of your heritage is from England, Britain. So yeah, the deeper connection, I think. And that was when I went to Verdun. It's incredible to see, but I didn't feel like there was that big connection there, personal connection, you know?
French.
And maybe for somebody who's from France, Verdun would be that place for them because of those connections.
But you're definitely right that it's a lot more depressing on your own psyche. You see Fleury, even, I mean, when we went to Fort Douaumont, I mean, it was the weather was horrendous, so that didn't help, but it's just a very solemn place. I don't know if that's the correct way of describing it, but yeah.
Sorry, I think as well, like when I go to Verdun, you said it perfectly. It has this kind of somberness because it's still all visible there, but it's also all forest, so it's darker. The weather as well, like when it's raining, usually we go there, or when I go there, it's always
and it's up in the mountains, so yeah, it tends to be crappy weather.
Yeah. So with some higher, it's I don't know, and the carnage in that. Like Verdun is way smaller than the Somme, right? The Somme is really wide. The Verdun was the Argonne, and it was Verdun really where most of the things happened. And because the fields couldn't be reclaimed, most of the fields couldn't be reclaimed by the farmers. It still has that eerie feeling because of all the shell holes, craters, trenches. And to be fair, we need to go back to Verdun again with the group.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, I want to go back.
I would like to visit again.
As an American, you know, for us, the major fighting that our army did was right outside of Verdun, the Meuse-Argonne offensive. It's still to this day, it's the largest battle in American history. Over 1 million men fought in the Meuse-Argonne offensive for the Americans. And yeah, it's just a 20-mile stretch from, you know, the Argonne forest over to Verdun and the Meuse River, where most of our fighting during that war took place right in there. And that's where you have the Lost Battalion and Alvin York and all these incredible sites. I'd like to go back again just for those things.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing some of the American sectors there because we didn't really do that when we were there, right? We kind of stayed away.
We did. I mean, we went to Montfaucon, but that was about it.
Yeah. And Rob and you went on a separate. When me, I think Sean, you, me, we were doing relic hunting, and I think Marcel joined you and Rob as well. Chris,
I think it was just me and Rob.
Yeah, I think as well. Yeah, and
that's when we went to Montfaucon. It was just me and Rob. That's right. Yeah.
Well, no, Montfaucon we did.
We went up to the top of the tower together.
Yeah,
but then Rob and I went back afterwards. Yeah.
We should go back. Dude, there's so many places. Well, have you ever been to Waterloo?
No.
Oh.
You know how many times I've been within 5 miles of Waterloo, but I haven't been there because I've flown into Brussels several times. And nope.
Oh man,
I've never been Waterloo. I need to go.
Man, if you go there, you have like one big hill with a lion on top.
Yeah.
That's the Dutch.
Prince of Orange. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the Dutch. Just I wanted to flex my proudness of the Netherlands, to be fair.
Moving on.
Yeah, I'm moving on. So, Sean, this is the question for you, the one that you wanted to ask.
Oh, yeah. See, when we were coming up with some questions, I didn't want this to be like the same old questions. So primarily, I guess your channel focuses on like the American Civil War, World War I, World War II. Are there any other sort of key conflicts? I need to say this that you would explore, i.e., Vietnam, the Korean War. Is there any scope for that, or have you got any ideas or anything penciled in your little black notebook somewhere?
I would like to do more on Korea. And again, you talk about personal connections. My great uncle, who I knew really well, was in the 3rd Infantry Division in Korea, 15th Infantry Regiment. It was the same unit that oh gosh, what's his name? The most decorated American soldier, Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy was in that same regiment in World War II that my uncle was in Korea, the 15th Infantry of the 3rd Infantry Division. And He told me about seeing these Chinese human wave attacks coming at them, just thousands upon thousands of guys coming up over the hill, and what that felt like, and being in this frozen landscape, like the Chosin Reservoir and things like that. And I wish I knew a lot more about the Korean War than I do, just because of my own family connection to it. So I'd like to explore more of that. Something I am really interested in and do know a lot about, but I've never done a ton of on-site content for, is the Wars of the Roses in the UK.
Oh, nice.
Which is really a civil war in many ways. It was one of many civil wars that the English had. I'd like to go. Rob and I went to Bosworth, but it was raining so hard that day that we really didn't get to film that much. I'd like to go to places like Wakefield and Towton, which Towton was the bloodiest battle ever fought in the UK in its history on British soil. So I'd like to explore a lot more of those things if I ever get the chance. Plus, it gives me a chance to come over and get some Nando's.
Nice.
Which is never a bad thing.
If you need a driver, you know who to call, right?
I just don't get it. I've never had it, and you guys are making
That's
it
why
so
you don't
big.
get it, because you've never had it.
It's not even
big.
like super special. It's just it's decent food, decent flavors, and it's at a reasonable price. It's like a decent.
It's almost fast food too.
Yeah,
like
it is almost fast food, but it's not. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe.
It's great. It's part of the experience. Greg's and Nando's are two things I have to do anytime I'm in the UK.
Yeah, come to the UK, and I think Nando's is what, Portuguese or something. So you can come to the UK and have Portuguese chicken.
We have Nando's in the States now. We've got like 5 of them in the DC area. So
nice.
So we go from Korean War, Vietnam War,
Portuguese
War of
chicken.
Roses to Nando's and Portuguese chicken within 1 minute.
Sounds about right.
Full
Nice.
circle.
Well, welcome to the podcast of Trails of History. So, so Korean War is what about Vietnam War? Something about that? Any connections to the Vietnam War or?
No, not really, believe it or not. And I honestly don't know why. And it's strange because Vietnam, I was born really close to the end of the Vietnam War. I mean, I was born the same decade the Vietnam War ended. So I don't know why I haven't found more interest in it. I need to sit down and watch a few documentaries and learn more about it, because it's just not something I guess I've really ever taken enough time to learn about. And we have, they're getting older now, but most of our World War II veterans are gone, and same with Korea, but a lot of our Vietnam veterans here in the States are still alive. And
yeah,
I think maybe it's because I grew up at a time when people didn't like to talk about the Vietnam War. Vietnam was never viewed here the same way World War II was. World War II was seen as honorable, and these men were heroes. And many of the Vietnam veterans, to our shame, we treated terribly when they came back. Yeah. These guys were drafted. They didn't have a choice. They didn't go there because they wanted to go and kill Vietnamese people. They went because they had to. They were drafted and they were told to go. And they came back, and we spat on them, and we protested against them. And I'm not saying people shouldn't protest against unjust wars, but really kind of shameful the way we treated a lot of our veterans. And I think we're doing better with that now, but I think I'm probably a product of my generation that we just didn't talk about Vietnam a whole lot when I was growing up.
They were old enough to...
I just said it's strange how Chris is like, I want to do War of the Roses. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to do Vietnam. Like I've always had, I guess, growing up, I think the first real Platoon was probably the real first war movie I ever watched. So I always had a bit of a fascination with, and I talked about this with JD, and it wasn't until I discovered some books about some of the Mac v SOG guys and what they got up to out there, and the secret war in Cambodia and Laos as well. It just fascinated me, like the theater they were serving in, the operations, the tactic changes. Because when you look at World War II, Korea, all the other wars building up to that, this was a different ball game, right? And the way conventional warfare changed, and then at the brunt of that, you've got 18, 19-year-old guys doing it. Like, every war has young guys, but Vietnam, I don't know what the draw is for me, but just those individual stories and what went on, it just blows my mind.
Old enough to kill and not old enough to drink or vote.
Yeah.
A big reason why the U.S. changed its voting age, because when Vietnam began, you had to be 21 to vote in the United States, and they changed it to 18. during the Vietnam, in the aftermath of the Vietnam War. And I think that was a big reason why, is there was that argument that here are these men who were sending out to go fight in war, and they can't drink and they can't vote, but they can die.
Yeah. Crazy, right? And I don't think that, so now within the next 5 years, all the World War II veterans are gone. Like same with
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah,
There'll be a
probably
few.
around 5 years. Yeah, most of the guys now are 102, and they were like 18, 19 back then during the Second World War. So probably in like, let's say around 5 years, that generation is lost, which we call the greatest generation. Then the Vietnam guys will be gone in like 10, 15 years. Do you think maybe also those
maybe a little longer than that? I mean, Vietnam ended what, 28 years after the end of World War II. So we probably still got another 30, 35 years with most of those guys.
Do you think the older those guys get and the more time passes, the more recognition they will get still? Because they still get now more.
Yeah, I think we've already seen some of that. I think we're far enough removed from it now that people are starting to say, you know what? We don't have to honor the war they fought in. We don't have to say it was a good idea. We can say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have gotten involved in Vietnam, but we can still honor the sacrifice that these men had to make. They didn't have a choice. We had a draft. Most of those guys were drafted. They were sent to the war, whether they liked it or not, whether they agreed with it or not. And they were sent into a pretty crappy situation and pretty difficult, fighting against an enemy that didn't fight with the same rules that we were fighting with. And that makes it difficult.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so not next year, but 2027, we'll do a trip to Vietnam. Make videos there.
I've heard stories. I know people who have gone to Vietnam, and I've heard a lot of really positive experiences, like Americans that have gone to Vietnam and have loved their visits there. So yeah.
I've heard even some of my friends went to Vietnam just as just foreigner tourism, not really history tourism, but still they had like a phenomenal time. People there are very, very kind, and they're very, how do you say it, welcoming?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is a battlefield or a historic place you think every person should at least visit once? And and let's do this in two categories. One is people who are not interested in history, and another one that with people who are into history.
People
I think that's different.
People who are interested in history, I'll go back to what we talked about earlier. I would say the Somme. Every person I know who's been to the Somme has just whatever, like we said, that really hard to quantify connection that you feel to that place. Specifically, I would send them to Newfoundland Memorial Park.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah,
that's a place that not only can you see, like you can visualize what happened because you can see where the lines were, you can see the remnants of the trenches, but you also get a perfect picture of what the larger war was about. Close quarters where men charged across a field, didn't make it more than 100 yards before 80% of their battalion was gone. And that sums up World War II or World War I in so many ways. Another place that I would put along with that's not really a battlefield, but the Menin Gate.
Yeah. In Ypres.
Gosh, I've rarely felt emotion like I did the first time I visited the Menin Gate and experiencing the last post ceremony. 100 years later, seeing how large a crowd gathers night after night after night. To honor men that died 100 years ago who have no known grave and just are names on a wall. And that sums up history in so many ways for me. So I think even if you're not interested in history, that's a place that you can, I think, connect with. And Ypres is just a really cool town to visit.
Oh, man.
I was literally, some colleague of mine asked the other day, and I said, if you're not interested, but you want a visual representation, I said, go to the Somme. I said, Newfoundland Park, Hawthorne Ridge Crater. You can see all the original the movies from World War One, and you can physically still see that. And I said, if you just want a weekend away with your missus or your wife, just go to Ypres. It's a stunning city. You could have a great time there with a loved one, just seeing the architecture of the city. But then you've got the Menin Gate ceremony. You can take part in that. and then just short hops around the city. There is some of the World War I stuff. So even if you're not overly into it, just taking part in that ceremony, grab some food, some drinks in Ypres itself, it will soon open your eyes, and you'll get a better inclination of what happened. Even if you're not going to follow it up and start visiting loads of battlefields, you can still take a moment of your life to just pay your respects in that way.
And here in the States, I would tell people to go to Gettysburg. I think for a lot of people, that is the battlefield that people visit, because there's so much to see. It's so easy to understand that battle, because you can stand most places on that battlefield and see a good bit of the battlefield, and you can understand how it all works in your mind. So it's a really easy battle to learn about and to understand, because it is laid out. And it's not like battlefield. You go to Ypres, you go to the Somme, unless you know what happened, you're not going to go to the battlefield and learn what happened there from a bunch of signs that say, there's some. Gettysburg, every single unit has flank markers. It'll say, here was the left flank of the 4th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Here was the right flank of the 4th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Next to them, you can see where that unit was. Everything is laid out with signs and tells you exactly what happened and everything. It's a great place for people who don't know history.
Probably why that is in the difference with Europe and America is probably because Europe has seen so many wars and so many battles that if we would do that for every battle, it would cost a lot of money.
That's true.
It wouldn't all fit. And for America, I would love to go to Gettysburg.
It would help if we all just stopped scrapping each other at the end of the day, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
See, we did one civil war, and we were like, that's enough fighting on American soil for a lifetime. We're good.
Yeah. Ever since Europe existed, we've been fighting on this continent, literally from the Romans until now, today.
You go to a place like Montfaucon. We were talking about that earlier. The Americans fought there. Before that, the French and the Germans were fighting there. There were battles with the Vikings at Montfaucon 1,400 years ago. I mean, it's
crazy, right?
All throughout history, yeah.
And so when I'm thinking back to that question that I asked you, like, what place would you bring somebody who is not really interested in history to? I would think Verdun. I would think like somebody who's not interested in history, just let them see the destruction of what humankind is capable of.
Yeah.
I think that if you go to the ossuary and you literally look into the eyes of the skulls that are underneath in that ossuary, and then you tell them that it's 120,000 missing soldiers underneath there.
Yeah.
And, that
by the way, that's only a fraction of the people who died at Verdun. Just those 120,000. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
what's the name of the town where they mined underneath and blew it up? That's just
Vauquois Hill.
Vauquois Hill.
Yeah.
Vauquois Hill.
That didn't even cross my mind earlier. It was a visual representation of how a whole town just vanished, with one mine explosion.
One little tiny area where they were back and forth for 3.5 years. Yeah.
But when you look at the map, I remember the map with the church, blah blah blah. Yeah. And then when you physically look at it, and it's just this. It's just dipped in the earth. Yeah.
There is no town anymore.
I don't know how I could forget that earlier when we're talking about visual representations. Vauquois Hill's crazy.
And then going down in the mines. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And same with Fleury as well. That town crossed hands 16 times. 16 times in like 9 months, was it? Verdun was I think around 9 or 8 or 9 months. That's
300 days, that battle. Yeah.
That's crazy. Like I would definitely bring somebody who's not into history, bring them to Verdun and let them see what people are capable of doing to each other.
I would say about Verdun, going back to what we said earlier, if you go to Verdun, it removes any idea that you might have that war is glorious and honorable. It takes all of that out and it turns it into war is ugly and it's awful, and you can't go to Verdun and think anything else about war.
No, and then to imagine that almost every French soldier has fought in Verdun in the First World War. It's absolutely insane. Okay, we have 2 more questions, then we'll go to the last ending questions of the podcast. I still want to ask this one. I know we're already over an hour, but I just wanted to ask this question. Have you ever stood somewhere, and then we'll say it in Europe, not American-wise. Have you ever stood somewhere that fundamentally changed your perspective on a certain historic topic? We also asked this to JD, and his answer, to just give you an idea, was Omaha Beach, on how big it actually is and how wide the beach is. So for you that's somewhere that fundamentally changed your perspective on a certain historic event or topic? Or
It was Sheffield Memorial Park, the Accrington Palace. I had done research for months before it was my first trip to Europe. I spent months planning that trip. And even though I wasn't sure I was going to the Somme when I left to go to France, I had done research on the Accrington Palace. And when you read a number like 80% casualties, it's a number in your head. When you go and you stand there and you stand where they started, and then you realize that in 30 seconds, you can walk to about as far as any of them got, and realize that in that 30 seconds of walking, you've just crossed the area where 80% of their battalion fell. It was like a gut punch. It was like, and then this was repeated over and over and over and over again with
wave after
dozens
wave
of other battalions that morning.
Yeah.
I have never, ever looked at World War I the same since I stood there and saw that and thought to myself, because my frame of reference for a futile attack that never should have happened was at Gettysburg in the American Civil War and Pickett's Charge. Pickett's Charge was 15,000 men who marched over a mile of open ground and lost a little over half in a mile. And that, to an American mind, is the picture of devastation in a war. That is child's play. I'd do Pickett's Charge 10 times in a row before I'd join the Accrington Palace.
Yeah.
And their attack over 100 yards, where they lost 80% in a matter of minutes one morning. I mean, there's no comparison between the two of those things. And so that completely changed my view of how devastating and how awful war could be when I stood in
crazy, right? It's the same with the sunken lane. When you stand there and you see where they were stationed, and then literally you look a little bit to your right and you can see that cemetery. And then you look a little bit more to your right and you see the German positions. And they all fell in between that. And it's like 70 meters.
Yeah. What an important decision that was made by what was then the Imperial War Graves Commission, when they decided, number one, we're not bringing any of these guys back. We're going to leave them all on the battlefields where they fell. But also, for the most part, we're going to bury them and leave them right pretty much where they fell. They did have collection point cemeteries. So you have cemeteries with thousands of guys. But then you can stand at Sheffield Memorial Park and you can, within sight, see 4 cemeteries where you're standing. And you can know that those guys died within a few yards of where they're buried.
Yeah. It's crazy,
that's
right?
an important, a powerful visual, I think, that they made that choice to do that.
Yeah, remember when we were at Verdun Ridge with the drone up 360 and you could count 16 war cemeteries?
Yep.
The thing with the Somme, just a slight side note on those small cemeteries that, the lads are buried where they fell, is like how life goes on around them. The farmer will plow his field around that small cemetery, drive on, there's crops planted everywhere. And some of these cemeteries are just in the middle of a farmer's field with the farmer just won't plant a small footpath so you can at least get to the cemetery. And that's something visually you don't really see anywhere else, where you get that aspect. And it depends on the time of the year you go, where the crops are in full height, the poppies are blooming. Incredible to see.
Yeah, that's a great point, because like for Americans, we put them all in national cemeteries, and that's government land that's completely set aside from life. You're right. I went to the one cemetery because I did a video on a guy who's I had a photo of him in a letter, and I had to walk through a path that was in the middle of a cornfield. The corn was fully grown and over my head, and you couldn't see anything. And you're just walking through the corn, and you finally get to this little opening in the middle of this massive cornfield where you've got 2 rows of graves in this little tiny cemetery right in the middle of this farmer's cornfield.
Yeah. It's crazy.
There's not many other battlefields you'll see that.
Yeah, and of course, Sean, I always have to bring up when talking to Sean, the Devonshires, because, that being where you're from, those guys literally being buried in the very trench that they attacked from on July 1st. And that sign that they put, and I guess it was there right away, right after the battle. The Devonshires held this trench. The Devonshires hold it still.
Yeah.
I can't go there and read that without getting
onto a
chills.
wooden plaque, wasn't it? So when they buried them, they put it in there. It's so cool that they kept that inscription and put it on a stone. Yeah.
There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing like that. Yeah, to me, anything like that.
Yeah, the Somme. Go there, people.
Yeah, 100% go there. 100%. Shall you want
near the end? So there's one more question before the final two, and this is a little bit off topic, I guess. It's just something Sander told me about an organization you're involved with, Chris, and that's Rachel's Challenge. Now, I didn't know until this morning, and I actually spent probably about 40 minutes on the website reading what it's about, but it's not really history related per se, but it's a very important organization. So could you just tell us a bit more about what Rachel's Challenge is and what's your involvement with it?
Yeah, so I mean, for Americans, there definitely is history involved, just because in 1998, I was 20 years old, and I was going into youth ministry where I was going to be working with teenagers, and in the late 90s is when we started really seeing a lot of these school shootings happening in America. But most of the school shootings that had happened in my lifetime to that point were like 3, 4, 5 people had been killed, and I'm not trying to discount, 3, 4, 5 is 3 or 4 or 5 too many. Should never happen. But on April 20th, 1999, the Columbine school shooting happened out near Denver, Colorado, and that killed 13 students at the time, plus the 2 shooters who took their own lives. And it was one of those moments in American history that everybody remembers where they were when they heard about it, kind of like 9/11. So I remember that whole day hearing about it. I remember first getting a call that there had been this awful shooting out in Colorado. And that following week, the very first student whose funeral took place was this 17-year-old girl named Rachel Joy Scott. And she was the first student who had been killed that day. And so they aired her funeral live on CNN. And at the time, it was CNN's highest ratings in their history to that point, was Rachel Scott's funeral. And so a lot of people watched this, and I watched it and was just absolutely just blown away by this young woman's story and the kind of person she was. And like, there was a line running off the stage and around the room of people waiting their turn to talk about how Rachel had changed their life. And just because she was the kind of person that would go out of their way. If a kid was sitting by themselves at the lunch table, she'd go over and sit with them. If somebody was being bullied in the hallway, she would go stand in between and stand up for that person. She was just that kind of person all the time. And not long after that, her mom and dad wrote a book about her called Rachel's Tears, and it told the story of her life. And there were a lot of like really just mind-blowing things about her story, like the fact that she had said a year before she died that she was in the last year of her life, and she had told her friends and family, I'm going to die young. I don't know why, but I just feel like I'm going to die young, but I'm going to make an impact on the world and all this kind of stuff. And so by the time I had finished reading that book, this girl had become one of my heroes. And I told my then girlfriend at the time that if I ever had a daughter, I wanted to name her Rachel Joy after this girl whose story I'd learned about. And so when we got married and then our daughter was born in 2005, we named her Rachel Joy after this girl from Columbine. I had no idea at the time that in 2014, I would get the opportunity to audition to become a speaker for this organization called Rachel's Challenge, which was founded by her family as a way to honor her memory by going into schools and sharing her story to show what one ordinary person can do to make a difference in the world, just by going out of your way to show kindness to people every single day. And so we would share stories from Rachel's life and from the people whose lives were changed because she went out of her way to do something for them, to just show kindness and compassion. And so I got to know Rachel's family that way. And I'm one of at least like 20 people around the country that they know of that have named their daughters after her. And so Rachel's 2 sisters and 2 brothers and her dad and her stepmom have all become like family to me. And so since 2014, I've had the opportunity to travel all over the country, speaking in schools and sharing the story of a girl that I named my daughter after. Even though I never met her, she's kind of one of my heroes because she changed the world by just showing kindness and compassion to people. And, just a cool thing that I've gotten to be a part of over the years.
Yeah, that's really. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to ask this question, because it is slightly off piece from the normal topic. But when Sandra told me about it, I'm like, oh man, we need to speak about that, because even if that reaches one person, and
yeah, real quick, I'll just give you a story that we share in Rachel's challenge.
Yeah, please. I'm completely invested now.
To give you an example of how this makes a difference, and because it's easy to say, well, really, can kindness change a person's life? Not only that, can save a person's life. After Rachel died, this young man named Adam, I got to meet Adam a few years ago. He's a guy who was born with special needs, and so he talks different, he looks different, he walks different than most people, and as you might expect, unfortunately, when you're different, very mean-spirited people would make fun of him, and day after day after day, he would get bullied when he would come to school. And one day, he is in school, and these two guys come over. They're big guys, and they shove him up against his locker. They knock his books out of his hands, and they're standing there calling him names. And Rachel happened to be down the hall, and she saw this, and she comes running down. She gets right between these two guys and Adam, says, if you touch him again, you're going to have to deal with me. And thankfully for everybody involved, the boys walked away. And that day, Rachel and Adam became friends. Now, they weren't best friends. She wasn't like hanging out with him and stuff like that, but she stood up for him that day, and she would start telling other people, hey, you should go over and say hi to Adam, ask him how he's doing, just check on him, make sure he's doing okay. And a couple of months later, Rachel was killed, and she never knew that she actually saved Adam's life that day, because Adam told Rachel's family, he said, the morning she stood up for me in the hall was the morning I had decided to take my own life. He said things had gotten so bad that he was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to end it. And then that was the day Rachel stood up for him in the hallway. And he said that up until that moment, he didn't think anybody even cared whether he lived or died. And so just by standing up for him, Rachel made him realize there are people in the world that do think I matter, that do think I'm worth sticking around. And it completely changed the trajectory of his life. One person taking one moment to just say, do better. We need to treat each other better. And there was story after story after story like that with Rachel. And those are the kinds of stories we share with students, to say it does matter how you treat people. It does matter that you stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves, because Adam wouldn't be here if Rachel hadn't done that. So those are the kinds of stories that we share.
Wow.
Such a powerful message. And I think, it's not isolated to America either, is it? It's the entire world could benefit from the story.
And it's little things. You don't have to do like grand things to change a person's life. You can just say, hey, you matter. Your life matters. I care about you. We might not be the same. We might be very different, but I care about you, and you do matter. And that goes a long way.
Wow.
Yeah. I think we'll make sure we leave links to the website and stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
If anyone listening wants to do a bit more research or look into that, then the link will be in the description below.
Man, you could probably talk hours and hours on that story of.
You did a podcast just on that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I need a box of tissues, though.
Huh?
I said I'd need a box of tissues. I'll be crying my eyes.
At the end, when you said that, I already got a little bit. You can talk so well as well, right? Like you probably said it 100 times already.
Well, and honestly, Rachel's challenge in a lot of ways helped, I think, pave the way for the YouTube channel, because I was doing work with Rachel's challenge. I would be really busy, like on the road 5 or 6 days a week, traveling all over the country. And then I'd be home for 9 months out of the year doing nothing. And that was why I decided to start the YouTube channel. And cool connection to history that Rachel has. We had a speaker for Rachel's challenge in Amsterdam, who was doing Rachel's challenge. And he happened to be a caretaker for this woman named Miep Geese. Now, I don't know if you know who Miep Geese is.
I know. Yeah.
But actually, a TV show just came out about Miep Geese a couple years ago called A Small Light. Miep Geese was the woman who hid the Anne Frank family and another family in the annex, right? And Miep heard about Rachel Scott's story and saw a lot of parallels between Rachel and Anne Frank, because Rachel kept journals and she would write all these things. That's how we know, for example, that she wrote 11 months before she died, she wrote, "This will be my last year, Lord. I've gotten what I can. Thank you." You know, like she made these predictions about her life coming to an end. And one of her journals, I've held it in my hand, has a bullet hole through the middle of it from the day she was killed. It went right through the middle of her journal. And so she started keeping journals because she was inspired by Anne Frank. And so now Miep Gies learns about Anne Frank's story, or about Rachel's story. And Miep actually invited Rachel's dad and stepmom to come out to the Netherlands to meet her.
Wow.
And as they were leaving from their visit with Miep, they took a picture of the 100-year-old Miep Gies waving out the front door of her house. It was the last picture ever taken of Miep. She died a few days later.
Wow.
And we showed that picture of Miep waving to the Scots as they were leaving in our presentation for Rachel's Challenge, because we talk a lot about Anne Frank in Rachel's Challenge.
Incredible.
Dude, we should do a podcast only on Rachel's Challenge. Literally. Dude, that's amazing. Yeah, you said Miep Gies, and I'm like, wait, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
That's
Well, we talked, I think you and I talked about it. Maybe we still got to set this up because we're going to Jordan together in February, and I'm flying into Amsterdam, and we talked about maybe we should go and do like the Anne Frank house or something when I fly into Amsterdam.
Yeah, so I had one time they gave me permission during COVID to go into the Anne Frank house alone and film there.
Oh, wow.
And they gave me permission. I still needed to wait for a confirmation, not a confirmation, but for a date. We got a date, and eventually a week before that date, I got an email that it was canceled.
Oh.
And I was so bummed out. I had the whole Anne Frank house for myself.
Wow, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, and nope, they canceled the week before. And I was so sad when that happened. I remember. Man, after that Rachel's Challenge, I don't know how I can go do these last 3 questions or 2 questions now.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Right back to history.
Yeah.
Okay, back to history, go. This feels so weird now, man. So if you could sit down with one person from history, who would it be and why? And what would you say to them? And it can only be one person. Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, he's done it now. He's going to hang up.
So my usual answer to this would be as much religious as historical, and I would say someone like Jesus or the Apostle Paul, but I'll keep that out and keep it strictly history. Ulysses S. Grant.
That's General Grant, right?
Yeah, General and President Grant.
Yeah,
He's one of my bobbleheads that I have here. Probably the single person from history I would most want as a best friend. Fascinating guy who also was, I think, just a really, really good person, which you can't necessarily say that about a lot of historical figures. Not a perfect person, but a good person. And I would just love to know what he thought his life was going to look like, because in the middle 1850s, he was broke. He was an alcoholic who had been basically forced to resign from the army as a captain. He was selling firewood just to try and get by on his property. And his life seemed to be going nowhere. And a decade later, he is the highest ranking general in American history, and he gets elected president of the United States. And, you know, how quickly his life changed from being going nowhere and poor and broke and miserable to the highest office in the land and one of the most famous people in the world. I would ask him, when did you realize your life had changed forever? And how did that feel? You know, seeing how quickly that happened for him.
Seeing how quickly that happened for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, on a
different level,
scale,
yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you know, you said it exactly the same.
During COVID, the crazy thing about that, I was 100% broke because my job, the way I made my living at that time, was traveling around speaking to large groups of people in confined spaces. School wasn't happening, travel wasn't happening. And large groups of people in one space wasn't happening. And because I worked for a nonprofit, I wasn't eligible for unemployment in my state. So I wasn't making any money at all.
Yeah.
So I went from literally having no income to my life changing in a matter of months.
Yeah. So Rachel's Challenge is now still going on, right? It's now back up again. Yeah.
And technically I'm still a part of it. I've taken time off because of everything else I'm doing. I haven't had time. But I'm still considered an occasional presenter for them. And just a couple months ago, they asked me if I was available for a couple events, and I'm still kind of like on the list of presenters. And at some point I will do more presentations. I just haven't had the time lately to do it. But yeah, they're still doing it.
It's really cool that you're doing that. Also, it's a pretty cool answer. The one that you did with Graham.
Oh yeah.
You want to do the next one, Sean?
Yeah, so it follows on fairly close to that. So if you could be a fly on the wall or an invisible drone, what historic event would you like to observe from history? So it could be a meeting between people where you're a fly on the wall, or you could be, a drone above a battlefield witnessing it.
And not the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
No.
That doesn't count. Oh.
I would go back to the Battle of Alesia with Julius Caesar, where he's laying siege to Vercingetorix in France. This is the Gallic Wars, and his army completely surrounds the Gallic army, builds fortifications, and then a second army comes behind them, and he builds another set of fortifications outside. And so he's trapped between two sets of fortifications. He's besieging one army while another army is besieging him, and he ends up beating both of them. I would love to see what that looked like. I guess the closest thing we've got to that is like the opening scene in Gladiator, where we get to see that battle that happens in the forest there in Germania. I don't know. There's just something about that battle that I would love to have seen it visualized, what that must have looked like.
Why? I thought I knew this, but when you said the other on the other side, then another ring. Yep. I think I've never heard of it before.
And that was what was fascinating about Julius Caesar with his armies, is how quickly they could throw up a set of fortifications. And when they would travel every night, when they would camp for the night, they'd throw up fortifications, and he could throw up a bridge like in no time. And I bet there's probably like artist renderings of what that looked like.
Yeah, I have it. I have it here as well now. A Battle of Alesia. I don't know if the camera can see it that well.
Yeah, I've just loaded it on the
first time I'm hearing of.
It's not one I've heard of either, so that's another rabbit hole I'm going to fall down now.
Where is this in France?
It is. I want to say it's south central France, or it's actually not real incredibly far from places like Verdun.
Really? I know another video idea where I'm going to.
And they've got recreations of some of the fortifications and stuff there too.
Oh,
I think there's a big.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's sort of middle-ish France.
Yeah,
northeast-ish. Okay, never heard of that. I'm gonna steal that idea, Chris. I'm gonna make a video probably about that.
There you go. Yeah, that was the moment when he kind of defeated the Gauls once and for all. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's one. I always say the Punic Wars that I want to say. Although I have a new one to add, Sean, as well on my list. The explosion at Chernobyl.
Oh.
That's something I've been into nuclear physics a little bit more lately. And that Smart Every Day guy on YouTube. It's like a YouTube channel, Smart Every Day. He has like he went into one of the nuclear reactors, and you could look inside of the reactor, which was absolutely insane. And that video sort of sparked it up again.
If things ever calmed down, if the war wasn't going on, I would have suggested that while we were in Poland that we went over into Ukraine and went to Chernobyl. But
100%.
Not right now.
Yeah,
definitely gonna do that.
I'd love to visit. Well, Ukraine's always been high on my list to visit pre-war, and now this is going on.
And same thing with Russia. I'd love to go to Russia, Borodino battlefield in the Napoleonic Wars. I'd love to go to Borodino.
Even walk around in Moscow and seeing the square where they always. Oh man. Well, maybe cool. In a few years.
Hopefully. Maybe when somebody's not around anymore.
Chris, what's coming up on your channel or other projects? You sometimes are on the History channel. You have in the intro. I'm talking about Vlogging Through History, stories of the Great War, stories of the Civil War, VTH Gaming, and VTH Extra. Am I missing one?
No, I think that's all of them. So I've got some more History Channel stuff coming up. I'm filming more for Dan Aykroyd's Unbelievable, that TV show. I've had some other shows that they've reached out to me about, but the schedule just hasn't worked and I haven't been able to film, but I've had some other opportunities with the History Channel as well. And that's always a lot of fun to do. Yeah, I've got more content coming. I've got a series that's going to be starting in a couple of days on stories of the Civil War from the Stones River battlefield in Tennessee that I filmed. I've got some more Somme content coming to stories of the Great War from our trip that's going to be coming up pretty soon. And got some really cool stories that I'm going to be telling about some of the German side of World War One. I've got quite a growing collection of things. I'm going to start doing kind of like what JD and Eric do with the American Artifact series, where I'm going to do some videos with some of my artifacts that I have and just tell the stories. I've got one collection. It's about 20 pictures of a German soldier during World War One. It's a bunch of him in uniform with his buddies at Verdun and different places. And I've got letters that he wrote. I've got his leave pass that he got. He was from the area around Berlin. He was in a cavalry unit. I've got some of his records from the war, and I'm going to be doing his whole story with all the photos and just talking about that. So I'm excited about focusing a little more on the German side because we focus so heavily on the Allied side of things. I think it's fun to tell some of those other stories too.
Okay. Does Chris know about Jay Trench Diaries, that YouTube channel? I'll have to send you the link. So he's a guy we had on the podcast recently. He's a German guy, and he narrates or he reads German books written by German soldiers, but he reads them out on YouTube in English.
Oh, cool.
Corrects any historical inaccuracies. So, like Sniper on the Eastern Front, I'm halfway through now. Is absolutely incredible. But
yeah, it's really
there's some good World War One German perspective books which he does. So yeah, it's worth.
Oh yeah, awesome. There are people in his comments even saying, "Oh, fine," on another episode of a different book. Oh, finally something else than the trench war from the German perspective, because that book was so heavy that they were like, "Oh, finally I can listen to something else than the horror of World War One." Like that's how bad it was in that book. Yeah. I still have to listen to it though, but definitely doing that.
Nice, very cool.
Chris, thanks. That's been an hour and a half.
I think this is the longest one, right?
This is now sort of the longest one. Yeah.
All that means is I'm long-winded and I have a lot to say.
Well, yeah, we like that.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to have you back on. Chris. We definitely.
I love it. I always love hanging out with you guys and talking. It's always fun.
Yeah, man, the time flies. Chris, thank you for being here. And we always end the episodes with a salute. You can salute, you can wave, you can do whatever. But thank you guys for watching this podcast on the Trails of History podcast, together with Chris from Vlogging Through History, Sean, my co-host, I'm his co-host. Should I say that?
You're the
boss. And we'll end the podcast with that. Cheers, everybody. Salute.